Let me explain the situation to you. James is not going to survive much longer, and since I've been working with you two, he's not lost any weight and he's worse off now.
Some stories are meant to inspire, but others leave you haunted long after the screen fades to black. On My 600-Pound Life, we've seen people fight impossible battles, only to watch heartbreak take over. We are stepping into some of the darkest and most heartbreaking journeys ever seen on the show. These stories go far beyond weight. They are battles shaped by childhood trauma, emotional wounds, and the quiet desperation of living in a body that is slowly giving up.
I'm so big now I can hardly move. All I can do on my own is scooch to the edge of my bed, go to the bathroom, and see if my mom's awake.
Behind every episode is a person fighting for one last chance, while their family struggles to keep them alive. But not every fight ends in survival. Some journeys collapse into tragedy. So here's the real question. When a body reaches its breaking point, what breaks first, the flesh or the spirit? L.B. Bonner, The Silent Collapse. L.B. Bonner walked into the world of My 600-Pound Life with a spark that made viewers root for him instantly. The kind of charisma that made people believe he would be one of the show's greatest success stories. But behind his easy smile and southern charm was a lifetime of pain he had mastered hiding. And as his story unfolded, it became clear that sometimes the brightest personalities are the ones carrying the darkest battles. Long before cameras ever entered his home, LB was fighting invisible wars. His struggle with weight wasn't simply about overeating or poor habits. It was tied to deep emotional wounds, stretching all the way back to childhood. Like many people on the show, food became his comfort, his numbing agent, his escape from a world that felt increasingly heavy. But for LB, that weight took on a whole new meaning after a devastating accident that changed the course of his life forever. He was only a child when a car accident crushed his lower body and left his legs so shattered that amputation became the only option. Losing a limb didn't only take away his mobility, it took away his independence, his confidence, and a large piece of the life he'd imagined for himself. As he spent his adolescence grappling with chronic pain, depression, trauma, and a new identity he never asked for. Every ache reminded him of what he lost. Every day brought new frustrations. And when painkillers blurred into emotional fog, food became the one thing that soothed him. One bite turned into another. Nights turned into binges. And before he fully understood what was happening, his weight had spiraled into the 600s. By the time LB appeared on My 600-Pound Life in Season 6, he had reached a breaking point, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Yet he walked into Dr. Now's office with that trademark smile, trying to convince everyone, including himself, that he still had fight left in him. He wasn't there to give up. He was there to try again. Dr. Now immediately saw the danger he was in. LB's weight wasn't just a number. It was a ticking time bomb that threatened his heart, his lungs, and his remaining mobility. If he didn't lose weight soon, he risked losing far more than a limb. He risked losing his life. What happened next shocked viewers. Instead of spiraling deeper into addiction, LB threw himself into the program with fierce determination. He followed the diet with discipline. He pushed through the workouts. He attended therapy sessions and confronted the emotional trauma tied to both his childhood and his accident. Pound by pound, he reclaimed control of his body, and by the end of his episode, he had lost over 300 pounds. Fans were inspired. His transformation was extraordinary. And for once, LB seemed genuinely hopeful. He shared updates online, smiling with new confidence, taking walks, going to the gym, socializing, reconnecting with the world. He had rebuilt himself from the ground up. People across the country looked at LB as living proof that change was possible. But what viewers didn't see was that the emotional wounds were still there. Weight loss surgery could heal the body, but it could not erase the lingering depression, the trauma from losing his leg, the pressure of being in the public eye. or the deep loneliness he tried so hard to hide. Behind the scenes, LB was struggling. Fame from the show brought intense scrutiny. The sudden attention was overwhelming. Expectations were crushing. And while he inspired thousands, he felt increasingly isolated. He had always been the strong one, the positive one, the fighter. But constantly being seen as a symbol of hope left him little room to admit when he was hurting. The truth is, emotional battles don't vanish just because the body changes. Sometimes the weight you lose only exposes the pain that was hiding underneath. In the months following his episode, LB began posting messages that hinted at inner turmoil, thoughts about purpose, faith, pain, and the constant fight to stay positive. They were subtle, easy to overlook, but in hindsight, they were warning signs of a heart breaking in silence. Then on August 2nd, 2018, everything came crashing down. LB posted a final message on social media, a calm, almost peaceful goodbye disguised as gratitude. It was the kind of message that doesn't raise alarms until it's too late. Friends didn't have time to reach him. The family couldn't intervene. And moments later, LB Bonner ended his life. He was only 30 years old. The news shattered viewers. How could someone who had overcome so much, someone who fought so fiercely, someone who inspired millions, lose the battle in the end? But that's the tragic reality. Mental health doesn't care how strong you are. Trauma doesn't disappear with weight loss. And sometimes the pain people hide is far greater than the pain they show. LB's story is a heartbreaking reminder that transformation is more than physical, and that even the brightest smiles can hide the deepest wounds. His journey didn't fail because he lacked strength. It ended in tragedy because he carried a lifetime of silent suffering, and the world never realized just how heavy it truly was. And if LB's ending left you shaken, the next story reveals what happens when the body's limits break, before the spirit ever has a chance to recover. LB's story shows how a life can break even after the world believes it's been rebuilt. But what happens when the collapse isn't silent at all? What happens when the body begins to fail faster than hope can grow? When the fight continues, but the clock runs out? Because our next story isn't just about struggle. It's about a man whose body was already losing long before he had a chance to save it. James King, a body that couldn't hold on. James King's story is one of the most haunting in my 600-pound life, not because he didn't fight, but because his body was collapsing faster than he could battle back. When he first appeared on the show, James weighed over 800 pounds. His frame was so swollen, so strained, so overburdened, that even his eyes told the truth he didn't want to speak aloud. He was dying. But James didn't start life this way. His story began like so many others, with childhood trauma, emotional chaos, and food becoming the one dependable comfort in a world that felt unpredictable. Growing up in a home where stress came in waves, James never learned healthy coping mechanisms. He learned to soothe with eating, distract with eating, celebrate with eating, numb with eating. By adulthood, the pattern was so deeply rooted that even love couldn't pull him out. James had built a family he cared about deeply, a partner, Lisa, and children who adored him. But the emotional environment around him wasn't peaceful. It was charged, tense, and filled with complicated dynamics. Lisa tried to support him, but their relationship suffered under the weight of his condition. She became his caretaker, but also unintentionally, part of the cycle that enabled his addiction, delivering food, avoiding conflict, trying to keep peace while the situation spiraled toward danger. When James finally arrived on My 600-Pound Life, he was bedridden, surrounded by medical equipment, and barely able to sit upright. The long-term strain on his heart was visible in every breath. Fluid filled his tissues. Pressure built in his organs. His body was giving up, piece by piece, cell by cell. Dr. Now delivered the blunt truth. Lose weight immediately, or you will die. It wasn't a warning. It was a deadline. But James wasn't just battling addiction. He was battling pain, depression, hopelessness, and a home environment where arguments sparked easily and stress ran high. Every setback pushed him back to food. Every fight drained his motivation. Every moment of weakness was met with the habit he had used his entire life to cope. His progress was inconsistent. Some weigh-ins showed small improvements, while others revealed devastating regressions. Dr. Now issued stern warnings, but James struggled to change his habits. Emotional pain kept pulling him back. His partner's attempts to comfort him often meant bringing the very foods he needed to avoid. It wasn't intentional sabotage. It was survival. When the person you love is breaking, you try to ease the pain any way you can. But easing pain isn't the same as breaking addiction. As the months passed, James' condition worsened. His heart struggled under the immense burden. His kidneys began failing, straining to filter the toxins his body couldn't handle. His skin became stretched and fragile. Hospital visits became more frequent. Doctors warned him repeatedly, but change came too slowly. His body had reached a point where even small improvements couldn't undo years of damage. There was a heartbreaking moment on the show when James's daughter pleaded with Dr. Now, tears in her eyes, terrified she would lose her father. And for a moment, James tried to push harder. But addiction isn't linear. Trauma doesn't disappear on demand. And the weight of guilt only made him retreat further into old habits. Eventually, James's health hit a catastrophic decline. Bedridden once again, he faced a reality no one can escape. Once the organs begin to fail, the body no longer has the strength to repair itself. On April 3, 2020, James King died from kidney failure and related complications, tied directly to his obesity. He was only 49. His death shook viewers, not because it was unexpected, but because it felt so preventable, so tragic, so heartbreaking. James wasn't weak. He wasn't lazy. He wasn't indifferent. He was overwhelmed by trauma, pain, instability, and a body that had carried too much for too long. James's story is a reminder that sometimes the body stops fighting even while the heart still wants to live. And if losing James felt like watching a man run out of time, our next tragedy is even more devastating. Because it wasn't just a life that collapsed. It was a life that collapsed twice. Shawn Milikin, a life that fell apart twice. Shawn Milikin's story is perhaps the most emotionally devastating in my 600-pound life. Not just because of what he endured, but because of how much he lost in such a short time. When he first appeared on the show, Shawn weighed over 900 pounds, one of the heaviest patients ever documented. But numbers were only part of the story. The real tragedy began long before the scale ever broke under his weight. Growing up, Shawn faced emotional challenges most children should never experience. His relationship with his parents was unstable, filled with tension and fear. Food became his refuge, the one thing he could rely on when everything around him felt unsafe. He ate to feel comfort. He ate to feel calm. And eventually, he ate to feel nothing at all. By his early 20s, Shawn had become completely dependent on his mother, Renee. She was his caretaker, his provider, his emotional support, and his only connection to the world. Their relationship, though loving, was deeply codependent. She enabled him because she loved him. She fed him because she didn't want him to feel pain. And she shielded him because she knew how fragile he was. When the show began, Shawn was bedridden in a dark room, surrounded by the stillness of a life that no longer resembled living. He couldn't stand without assistance. He couldn't bathe himself. He couldn't leave the house. His world was reduced to the four walls of his bedroom and the presence of the only person he trusted. Dr. Now recognized the danger immediately. Shawn's body was moments away from organ failure. His skin was stretched so tightly that infections could spread instantly. His heart struggled with every beat. His lungs had to work twice just to keep him breathing. But even with these risks, Shawn had a gentle, hopeful spirit that made viewers root for him. And somehow, against all odds, he began to make progress. Through the program, therapy, and strict diet changes, Shawn lost over 400 pounds. Viewers saw glimpses of a man rediscovering himself, smiling more, engaging more, imagining a future that once felt impossible. But all of that progress was tied to the one person holding his world together, his mother. And then the unthinkable happened. In 2018, Shawn's mother died unexpectedly. The loss shattered him. His mother wasn't just a caretaker. She was his lifeline, his emotional anchor, the only person who had consistently supported him since childhood. Without her, the fragile foundation he had built his progress on crumbled instantly. Shawn spiraled, depression consumed him, his eating habits collapsed. His home life deteriorated. He had no support system, no stability, no one to guide him through the grief. The emotional wounds he had carried his entire life ripped open again, deeper, sharper, more unbearable than before. And then came the final blow. In early 2019, Shawn developed a severe infection, one his weakened immune system couldn't fight. Hospitalized and alone, his condition worsened rapidly. On February 17, 2019, Shawn Milikin passed away at the age of 29. 2 losses. First his mother, then his life. Shawn's story is a tragedy layered with trauma, love, loss, and the brutal reality of what happens when someone's entire emotional support system disappears. His weight was never the real enemy. His life fell apart because the one person who held him together was suddenly gone. These stories remind us that my 600-pound life isn't just about diets or surgery. It's about survival. LB, James, and Shawn fought battles most people never see and paid the ultimate price. If these journeys moved you, drop your thoughts below. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories that reveal the truth behind the headlines. What do you think? Can someone truly escape a lifetime of pain?